Okay. Right. Our parsha deals with the generation destined to inherit the promised land. And we saw last week that by way of the doctrine of Balaam, the enemies sought to destroy Israel by enticing them away from following Yehovah with all their hearts. Last week's parsha ended with Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. They called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself to Baal Peor, and the anger of Yehovah was kindled against Israel. So they were seduced into idolatry. And Yehovah said to Moshe, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before Yehovah against the sun, that the fierce anger of Yehovah may be turned away from Israel. Moshe said to the judges of Israel, slay ye every one his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moshe and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. With everything that's gone on, you can see why they would be upset. And when Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aharon, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation, took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. And those that died in the plague were 24,000. Pretty horrific stuff, yeah. Now this all takes place in Shittim, which was the last camping ground of Israel before they crossed the Jordan to begin the conquest of the Promised Land. The exact location is unknown, but as you can see from this map here, there's an idea that it was somewhere around here. And you can see how close they were to actually entering the land. After 40 years in the wilderness, the people were so close to taking hold of the promises of Yehovah and entering into the land flowing with milk and honey. And this generation has watched the first generation die off. They are probably aware that the time is at hand. There may even have been a jubilant sense of expectation, like, wow, nearly there. They will no doubt have held on to the words Yehovah spoke to Moshe when he passed judgment after the sin of the spies. In Numbers 14, we read that a time was put on how long they would be in the wilderness. We read, truly as I live and as all the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yehovah, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and yet have put me to the test these 10 times, and have not obeyed or shemad my voice, shall see the land that I swore to give their fathers. None of those who despise me shall see it. Talking about the first generation. These people lacked faith, we read in Psalm 106. They actually despised the pleasant land, having no faith in his promise. They murmured in their tents, and as we just read, they did not shema the voice of Yehovah. Therefore he raised his hand and he swore to them, as we just read, that he would make them fall in the wilderness and would make their offspring afterwards fall among the nations, scattering them among the lands. The first generation, they were always looking back to the things of the world, of Egypt. They grumbled and they grumbled. They did not shema Yehovah's voice. That keeps coming up time after time. And we read that they despised him. That's how the Lord sees it, those people who refuse to shema his word. And back to Numbers, we read, my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land into which he went, and his descendants shall possess it. Caleb did not lack faith. He held tight hold of the promises of Yehovah, as we saw when we looked at Joshua 14. We also see Joshua mentioned in the same light of wholly following Yehovah. The rest, the word is clear. Say to them, as I live, declares Yehovah, what you have said in my hearing I will do to you. Oh, that we might die in the wilderness, they moaned and drivelled on. Your dead body shall fall in this wilderness, and of all your number listed in the census from 20 years old and upward who have grumbled against me. Not one shall come into the land where I swore that I would make you dwell, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. What set them apart? They wholly followed Yehovah. This is something that you should really hold on to. They followed Yehovah always, no matter what. But your little ones, the second generation, who you said would become a prey, I will bring in, and they shall know the land that you have rejected. So they're going to go in and enter the land. And this has been spoken by Yehovah. But as for you, your dead body shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and you shall suffer for your faithlessness, until the last of your dead bodies lies in the wilderness. According to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, a year for each day, you shall bear your iniquity 40 years, and you shall know my displeasure. So we've got a time frame on it now. We've got a promise that these second generation are going to go in, enter the land and possess it. And there's going to be a time frame of 40 years. And then the finality of this judgment against these people in the first generation is absolute in the next verse. I, Yehovah, have spoken. Surely this will I do to all this wicked generation, wicked congregation who are gathered together against me. This wilderness they shall come to a full end. There they shall die. So there we have it. The first generation will die off. There will be 40 years in the wilderness. The second generation will successfully enter the promised land. So I wonder how those of the second generation were feeling just before the events of Numbers 25 whilst they camped at Shittim, just across from the promised land. 40 years afterwards, we're the generation that's going to make it. They were right on the border of the promised land. They've already experienced great military victories. They're practically there. Like, yay, we've done it. And yet, along come the Midianite women, something new and exciting. Oh, what a blessing from Yehovah, some might have even said. We've been scooting around in this wilderness. It's all been a bit dull and a bit drab and dreary. And look at this. This is great, isn't it? We're near the promised land, and look what wonderful things are starting to happen. But these women offered the Israelite men sexual favors if only they would worship their God with them. That's what went on. How did that unfold? Moshe speaks later in the book of Numbers. Look, these women caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against Yehovah in the incident of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of Yehovah. What was Balaam's advice to the women that turned the Israelites away from Yehovah? We see it detailed in Revelation 2. We read, I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. So they're right on the edge. They're going to go into the promised land. We are the people. This is great. Something new comes along. Many of them probably thought, oh, this is great. It's not great, though, is it? It was the advice of Balaam to send the women of Moab to the Israelites, to offer the men sexual favors if only they would worship their God with them. Balaam was a prophet, and he no doubt knew both Yehovah's standards of morality as well as his jealousy against worshiping any other gods. So 24,000 Israelites died. But Yehovah's anger also arose both against the Moabites and the Midianites and against Balaam because of this. This was real heinous stuff that went on. Numbers 25, Yehovah spoke to Moshe saying, harass the Midianites and attack them, for they harassed you with their schemes by which they seduced you in the matter of Peor and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of a leader of Midian, their sister, who was killed in the day of the plague because of Peor. So they were seduced into this catastrophe, to this idolatry. We read about Balaam. Balaam also, the son of Beor, the one who practiced divination, was killed with the sword by the people of Israel amongst the rest of their slain. So the people who perpetrated this, they get dealt with by Yehovah. He's very unimpressed. And I can't help but think that Yehovah is letting us know his heart towards those that would lead his people away from his commandments. Those who would choose to seduce his people into going astray. People who don't necessarily come at his people with swords, guns, knives, etc., but are probably far more dangerous. Those who, by appealing to the flesh, would lead Yehovah's people to go after other gods. In the New Testament, Peter talks of false teachers who lead people astray and describes them as going the way of Balaam. 2 Peter 2. The Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment to the day of judgment, and especially those who indulge in the lust of defiling passion, despise authority. Presumptuous are they, self-willed, they are not afraid to blaspheme the glorious ones. Whereas angels, though greater in might and power, do not pronounce a blasphemous judgments against them before the Lord. But these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil things of that which they do not understand, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption, and shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to revel in the daytime. They are blots and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions while they feast with you. They have eyes full of adultery, insatiable for sin. They entice unsteady souls. They have hearts trained in greed, accursed children. Forsaking the right way, they have gone astray. They have followed the way of Balaam the son of Beor, who loved gain from wrongdoing. He was rebuked for his transgression. A speechless donkey spoke with human voice and restrained the prophet's madness. What was Balaam's transgression? It was when he decided to go with the princes of Moab. We read, your way is perverse before me, the angel of the Lord says to him. The word there is yirat. We see this word here, to precipitate or hurl headlong, to push headlong. It's a great description of those who would seek to satisfy their own agendas by tailoring Jehovah's word to suit their desires. That's exactly what Balaam's error was. What did you say, Lord? I didn't quite like what you said. Can you just say that again for me, please? I want here again. And this time, that's more like, I'll just twist that to be exactly what I want it to be. The way of Balaam, how many have gone that way? Consider the counsel of Balaam, pandering to the lust of the flesh to lead many astray, happy to go after other gods. Describes exactly what the ear-tickling teachers that so many enjoy listening to are doing. When I'm going through this, it's just impressed on me so much the fact that these people were really, really close. They probably thought, we have made it. We're the ones. We're the second generation. It's 40 years on. We can actually, the land is just over there. We've made it. And yet, because of the doctrine of Balaam, there's counseling to lead people away, to lure people away, by enticing them through what? The desires of the flesh. All these people perish. We read in Peter 2, a speechless donkey spoke with human voice and restrained the prophet's madness. The prophet's madness was that he pushed headlong, just like the teachers that Peter describes, who revel in their deceptions. And people are taken with them, eh? These are wells without water, clouds that are carried with a tempest, to whom the midst of darkness is reserved forever. Speaking loud boast of folly, they entice by sensual passions of the flesh those who are barely escaping from those who live in error. It's the same thing again, isn't it? Just like appealing to people's flesh. They promise them freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. Whatever overcomes a person, to that he is enslaved. Yeshua said, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. You'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth sets you free. I was thinking on my way here of a conversation that I had with somebody who goes to a Sunday church, and it didn't end well anyway. It ended with him saying, I really worry about my sister because she's not really doing, she doesn't go to church on a Sunday and all this, and she's doing her own thing. And I don't know why, but I got really angry because in the way he spoke, there was this assumption that he was perfectly okay. Like, oh, she's in trouble, but I'm fine. And I know why. I was thinking about this on the way down here then today, and I was just thinking of, I challenged him on these things, on his standing before the Lord. And I said, you are in a worse state. Couldn't be doing with it and wasn't very happy. But we read in Scripture about the fact that we're supposed to be new creations, we're supposed to be changed. And yet, I'm sat opposite the person who thinks he's doing well, who's not changed at all, who is interested in the desires of the flesh, who will listen to this nonsense, will be sucked in to follow this false God, to go after this false God. Why? Because there's this allure of, come with me, I'll satisfy the desires of your flesh. If you come and follow this Jesus, you don't have to worry. Anything you do, it doesn't matter. It's all fine. And it just really, really, really annoyed me. And I can see that he's completely lost, just like the people who were they were on the border. They could see into the promised land. Probably all thought, we've made it, we're the ones, and yet they were led astray by this nonsense. I haven't seen that person since because the conversation didn't go very well. But he's not the only one, is he? There are so many people who were led astray. And as I'm going through this Torah portion, I'm thinking to myself of all these people who fall for this and are led astray. There's probably very few who see the danger they're in, and they're probably all of this mindset of, we've made it. Just like the people of the second generation. It's us, we're the ones that were spoken of. We're going to get in, we're going to make it. It's been 40 years, there's the land there, we've made it. And so as we go through this teaching, I want you just to be aware of all week when I'm putting this together, there's just been this sense of this, like, the danger of patting each other on the back and going, yay, this is brilliant, and there's nothing can distract us and all this, and we're sorted, us. This, and I don't know why, but it just has concerned me all week. So I'll just let you know. The time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. Oh, bring us all that rubbish that Balaam said, the stuff that satisfies our flesh. They will turn away from listening to the truth, and they'll wander off into myths. We don't really want to know the word. We want something that's tailored to sound a bit like the word, but we don't want the truth. None of that. And this is not just the Christian world either. It's people who claim to walk in Torah, who actually still hold on to this idea that, yeah, we're sorted, it's okay if we go after the flesh a bit, doesn't matter. We're like the first generation. We don't actually Shema Yehovah, but we're cool. We're going to be fine. Beware false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. So, it still always gets me. I think people think false prophets are like, like they have an advert, like, I'm dodgy me, really dodgy. They don't. Inwardly, they're ravenous wolves, but on the outside, they wear sheep's clothing. Remember that when Balaam spoke over the people of Israel, the first blessing that he spoke in the name of Yehovah was this: we are a people who dwell apart and will not be reckoned among the nations. So, of course, the first attack against us will be our separateness from the other nations and peoples. Speaking with James just before we came in, and he was saying about when he's around people and he hears the people of the world speaking and stuff, and it's just like he's aware of how ridiculously far away we are from their thinking. And so, by way of the doctrine of Balaam, their enemies, in our instance, sought to destroy Israel by enticing them away from following Yehovah with all their hearts. Come and do the things that we do. It's great. It's good fun. Come on. Paul calls us to remember that we're set apart to Yehovah, that we are his people, that he is our God. What accord is Christ with Belial, with that which is worthless? Or what portion does a believer have with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them. I will be their God. They shall be my people. Therefore go out from their midst to be separate from them, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, then I will welcome you. I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty. 1 John 3. See what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called the children of God, and so we are. That's incredible, isn't it? Everyone who thus hopes in him purifies himself as he is pure. That's in 1 John 3, but Paul says exactly the same thing here. And he continues on and says, since we have these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from every defilement of body and spirit, bringing holiness to completion in the fear of God. The exact opposite of what the people in the incident of Baal Pure did. They defiled their bodies and spiritually were going after other gods, defile themselves that way too. We see many people in Numbers 25 who, despite the promises of Yehovah, chose to defile themselves physically and spiritually. They failed to bring holiness to completion in the fear of God. And it doesn't matter who you used to be before you came to Yehovah in repentance. As obedient children, don't be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance. I can look back on my past life and it makes me cringe and shudder, but that's not who I am anymore. As he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. How does Yehovah show himself to be holy? Yehovah's Avayot is exalted in justice, and the holy God shows himself holy in righteousness. How do we show ourselves to be holy? By walking in righteousness. Indeed, as sons, 1 John 3:10, and daughters. It is evident who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is the one who does not love his brother. Doesn't matter who you used to be. It's not who you are anymore. You are called to be holy. You shouldn't have a problem with saying, yeah, I'm holy. Because we're to be like Yehovah. I am the Lord your God. I am holy, so you must be holy. You should be holy to me, for I, Yehovah, am holy and have separated you from the peoples, that you should be mine. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is the truth. You want to know how to be holy? It's to walk in his ways. Being holy involves being separate, that we should belong to Yehovah. Not enticed away into all the nonsense that the world thinks is great and exciting. Separated in accordance with his word. The Lord is holy, the commandment is holy and righteous and good. You are a holy people to Yehovah your God. Your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the people who are on the face of the earth. You are the same thing in the New Testament. You're a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. If only they'd listen. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. These things shouldn't even be appealing to you. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. This is what these people fell for. It's what caused them to perish. The world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. The will of God is for us to walk in his ways and be separate, set apart unto him, holy. I delight to do your will. Your Torah is in my heart. It is my delight to walk in your ways, to be set apart to you. If the world hates you, know that it hated me before it hated you. Don't worry about being popular. If you were of the world would love you as its own, but because you're not of the world, because I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. You'll be hated by all because of my name. And then this, it is the one who has endured to the end who will be saved. These people in our parsha probably thought they'd arrived, but they did not endure to the end, did they? You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Don't want to be that. Just as Jehovah brought the people out of Egypt, so he has brought us out of the world, to be separate to him, to love him, not the transient things of the world which lead us away and further from him. Many Israelites were seduced by the desires of the flesh and enticed into idolatry, and they defile themselves. All those who would go after the flesh are easily enticed into idolatry. Just like the person I was speaking about. Of course he's going to want to go after another God. A God that's cool with whatever you're going to do, so long as you say, Jesus, I love you. Because really what he wants is not Yehovah, not to draw close to him, but to continue indulging his flesh. And so, yeah, give me that God. That God's great. In Proverbs 7, we have a warning against the harlot. My son, keep my words and treasure up my commandment with you. Keep my commandments and live. Keep my teaching as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Cherish the commandments. Watch over them, guard over them, recognize their value, and let them be a part of all that you do and all you think and feel. Cherishing the commandments is life. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend, to keep you from the strange woman, some translations, the harlot, from there, and then in the Hebrew, the nokri with their smooth words. Nokri, and we have it, and it's from H235, which I thought was interesting, because it speaks of calamity, disaster, and misfortune. So cherishing the commandments goes hand in hand, as we see here, with wisdom and understanding, and it equals life. And it keeps you from the harlot. The harlot, one who appeals to the desires of the flesh. And also in Scripture we see it represents a false church, a false religion, and speaks of spiritual fornication. The harlot has smooth words to draw us into sin. And we need the corresponding and greater power of Jehovah's words to keep us from our clutches. At the window of my house I have looked out through my lattice, and I have seen among the simple, I have perceived among the youths a young man lacking sense, passing along the street near a corner, taking the road to a house, in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. And we know how it ends when somebody positively pursues temptation. He's actually gone out looking for it. And I just wonder how many people who are foolish like this young man who might be listening to this teaching. How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. And we read here, the time of night and darkness, and that is an interesting phrase. 1 Thessalonians says, you are all children of light, children of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness. So we're called to be children of day, children of the night, which are all idioms for walking in the word. We are incredibly blessed. There's so many people who think they follow Yehovah, and they don't even have any reckoning or understanding of how precious his word is, how amazing his commandments are. Ephesians 5:8 says, for at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. Effectively saying, walk according to the word. Your word's a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. We see it throughout Scripture. The word is a light. And if you read on in 1 Thessalonians, you are all children of light, children of the day. We are not of the night or of the darkness. So then, let us not sleep as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us be sober, having put on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet, the hope of salvation, the armor of Jehovah. So, be sober, not given to wine, not given to strong drink, not given to false doctrine. Back to Proverbs. Behold, the woman meets him, dressed as a prostitute, wily or guarded of heart. Doesn't want her intentions to be fully realized. She is loud and stubborn, in some translations, rebellious. Her feet do not stay at home. Now in the street, now in the market, and every corner, she lies in wait. So she's like a predator. And it puts me in mind of this, 1 Peter 5:8. Again, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. So she isn't hard to find or arrange a meeting with, is she? She's bold and she has no shame. In Proverbs 30:20 we read, this is the way of an adulteress. She eats, wipes her mouth and says, I've done no wrong. So she seizes him and kisses him. With bold face she says to him, I have peace offerings with me and today I've paid my vows. So she's religious. She favors a God, though, who is willing to receive her peace offerings while she lives as she pleases. So now I have come to meet you and to seek you eagerly, and I have found you. I have spread my couch with coverings, colored linens from Egyptian linen, perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. And these things are all names for perfumes in this verse are also found in Song of Solomon's 4:14 as odoriferous images of sexual love, just enticing them in. Come on, come. Come, let us take our fill of love till morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home, and he has gone on a long journey. Took a bag of money with him, and a full moon he will come home. Now, when I read he has gone on a long journey, I can't help but think of Yeshua's parables. And again, I'm drawn to, as we're going to look at Yeshua now talking about at the end of times. Because when I'm looking at this second generation, again, as I put to you, I'm seeing these people who probably think they've made it. They probably think, yeah, we're there, right on the cusp. And yet they're led astray. Yeshua speaks to his disciples on the Mount of Olives. They ask about the end of the age. Yeshua answered them and said, see that no one leads you astray. This is like pretty much the first thing he says. See that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. Speaking of what? False religion. Speaking of harlotry. And when he says many will come and say that I am the Christ, I think what he's saying is, they're not saying, I'm Jesus, me. I think they're actually going to come along and say, yeah, this person in the Bible is Jesus. He is the Messiah. But they're going to lead people astray. Because what are they going to do? They're going to turn him into something that he isn't. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. So lawlessness, and move away from walking in the word. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Again, I think of those people right on the border, congratulating themselves. They didn't endure to the end. They perished. False Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. Again, a warning about being led astray. Then an admonition to be vigilant. This is the thing that I keep thinking about. Be vigilant. As I go through all these scriptures, therefore you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if the wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed, begins to beat his fellow servants, and eats and drinks with drunkards, be watchful, be sober-minded. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and an hour he does not know, and he will cut him in pieces and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. We see this mentioned many times in Scripture, weeping and gnashing of teeth. It speaks of judgment for those people who do not walk in righteousness. Drunkenness and the master's return, the coming of Yeshua mentioned in Luke 21. Watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the cares of this life, and that day come upon you suddenly like a trap. Okay, this heart's weighed down, heavy, dull, unresponsive hearts. Dissipation, what is it? It's effectively the giddiness and headache caused by drinking wine to excess. So don't have a hangover. Don't be drunk. We know what drinking and heavy drink represents. And don't be taken away with the cares of this life. Watch yourselves. Be sober-minded. Be watchful. The same message again. In Matthew 25, we have the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 have oil and they are ready. 5 have no oil for their lamps. And we read, and while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you. We see Yeshua talk about not knowing people when we read, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. And again here, go away, I do not know you. Again, Yeshua says this, watch therefore, for you neither know the day nor the hour. Watch, watch, be vigilant. Yeshua is speaking about with his disciples about the end of the age and his return. And then we read the parable of the talents. It will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. The man in the parable is clearly a picture of Yeshua. There he is, going off on his long journey. We see a similar account in Mark 13 regarding nobody knows the day nor the hour. It is like a man going on a journey. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Those who do well hear this. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. The servant who does badly, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. Everyone who has, for everyone who has will be given, more will be given, and he will have an abundance, but the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In the place there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Again, a picture of judgment on the unrighteous. The master on a long journey is Yeshua, and his return is at the end of the age. You can see what this is all teaching us. And then we read, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, just so we know that's exactly what he is talking about. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. So, Yeshua will return at the end of the age for his bride. Yeshua, when I read Proverbs 7, is to me the husband who has gone away on a long journey. When I read of a harlot who is religious, who says, my husband is on a long journey, I also think of those who have entered into covenant. Those who would call themselves the bride, yet they are not faithful. And I think of a woman as a church that is quick to lead many astray with seductive words, with promises of satisfying the desires of the flesh. And there are certain men crept in unawares who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men, turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness, denying the only Lord God and our Lord Jesus. All the way through Scripture, and we read when Yeshua is speaking, there's this admonition to watch, to beware, make sure that nobody leads you astray. What's the outcome for the one who does not cherish the commandments and hold fast to wisdom and understanding, to protect themselves from the harlot? Back to Proverbs 7. With much seductive speech she persuades him, with her smooth talk she compels him. And all at once he follows it, as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a stag is caught fast. Till an arrow pierces its liver, as a bird rushes into a snare, and he does not know that it will cost him his life. Unaware of the danger that he is in. And now, O sons, listen to me, be attentive to the words of my mouth. Let not your heart turn aside to her ways, do not stray into her paths. For many a victim she has laid low, and all her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is the way to Sheol, going down to the chambers of death. I think this is both a warning about being led astray by the desires of the flesh, losing sight of Jehovah's ways and being seduced by various lusts. And I think it's also a warning about falling for the smooth words of false religion that can lead you into idolatry by appealing to those desires of the flesh. And how do you protect yourself? By cherishing the commandments. Now, in the Baal Pure episode, we have the harlot, represented by the Midianite women who seduce those calling themselves Jehovah's people into idolatry, into spiritual fornication. We have the false prophet Balaam, the one who knew Jehovah but had gone astray. We know that everything is cyclical. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. So we have a false prophet and a whore at work together to destroy Jehovah's people. Now, I want to stay away from focusing too much on things that are prophetic, but we do have pictures in Scripture that are there to warn us. There are two beasts mentioned in the book of Revelation. The first is ridden by a whore, an apostate church. The second gives its power to the first and is also known as the false prophet. We read about the false prophet. I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. So, kind of looked good on the outside, two horns like a lamb, sounds all very good, but spoke like a dragon, the false prophet. Then we have the whore. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, and having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And you can't help but make the leap and see what is being given as a bit of a picture. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yeshua. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Doesn't mean he's admiring. It's with great awe and wonder, like astonishment, really. So, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Mother of harlots, mother of false churches that draw people away into spiritual fornication. Appealing to what? The desires of the flesh. Romans 8 says, the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. The flesh, okay, they appeal to the desires of the flesh that does not submit to Jehovah's Torah. Mother of harlots, mother of false churches that appeals to those who do not want to submit to the law of God. How many churches do you know that go under that title? Appealing to people who do not want to submit to Jehovah's Torah. So we see a false prophet and a whore mentioned, and the whore causes the world to be drunk. I got that wrong there. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who seated on many waters, speaks of many people, with whom the kings of the earth have committed for fornication, with the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Mother of false churches that draws people away, appealing to the desires of their flesh, that panders to their distaste for obedience to Jehovah's word, filling them with the wine of her fornication, enticing them into spiritual adultery, idolatry, to go after another god, getting them drunk. The Spirit expressly says that in latter times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons. 2 Peter 2:18, speaking loud boasts of folly, they entice by sensual passions of the flesh those who are barely escaping from those who live in error. I live in a house with my mother's a Catholic, and my dad goes to the Sunday church, which kicked me and JP out. And I occasionally hear things, like my mother was on the phone the other day and she's got a relative who's ill, and she mentioned when her mother was dying and she wanted to see the priest so we could give her last rites, and then she wanted to go to confession and all these things, and I'm hearing about all this religiosity and it just saddens me so much. And then I think when I see my dad go to church on a Sunday, and I just think, I know what goes on there. I know where the people are at. And it saddens me. It's really, really awful. And I think of all these people who are led astray. And like the man in Proverbs 7, he didn't even know that he was going to his death. But we can speak to people, and the best way we can speak to them is by being a light, by walking in Jehovah's truth. But I'm concerned about people who still hold on to these ideas. The ones who suffer from the hangover, as it were, I've mentioned this before, who still think it's okay to go after the desires of the flesh. Those who perhaps are patting themselves on the back. We've nearly made it. We're the generation. Look at us. It's been 4 years. We can see the promised land. And yet all through Scripture I see the Lord saying, watch, 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 watch. Watch that you don't get led astray. Everything is cyclical. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. We've seen the connection between the lust of the flesh and idolatry. Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. Insane. They bowed down to their gods. They joined themselves to Baal Peor, went after a false god, seduced into idolatry. I have impressed upon me the significance that the people in Numbers 25 were so close. I keep putting this map up. These were the second generation. They were supposed to make it. And yet we have the command, slay ye every one of his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And we read, 24,000 perished by plague. All these people, no doubt, would have been convinced in their hearts that they were shortly going to walk over the Jordan River and take hold of the promises of Jehovah. This generation has watched the first generation die off. For 40 years is up. And yet, for some, they will also fall in the wilderness. Something new comes along, something that appeals to the flesh, something that offers them a new spiritual experience. These pop up now and again, don't they? Little mad doctrines that drag people off down crazy avenues. Something exciting and different, something kind of gratifying. Let not your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her paths, false, the harlot representing false religion. Many a victim she has laid low, and all her slain are a mighty throng. Now these things took place as examples for us that we might not desire evil as they did. Do not be idolaters as some of them were, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And we see that this is actually written about the golden calf incident, where we see in Exodus 32, the people sat down to eat and drank and rose up to play. We must not indulge in sexual immorality, if some of them did, and 23,000 fell in a single day. Talking about the Baal Peor incident. As a quick aside, in Numbers we read that 24,000 died. Was Paul wrong? One explanation I came across. The apparent discrepancy will lead to a current reading of both verses. Those who died by the plague were 24,000. 23,000 of them died in one day. So 24,000 people died. 23 of those 24,000 died in a single day. This is an example of the New Testament providing an amplification of events recorded in the Old Testament, yet not a revision. That's just one explanation that I came across. There's others as well, but we won't be distracted by that. Back to 1 Corinthians 10. We must not put Christ to the test as some of them did, were destroyed by serpents. Nor grumble as some of them did and were destroyed by the destroyer. These things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. Said it before, the word is like a mirror. The word lets us know where we're at. And the one who looks into the perfect law, the Lord of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. And JP said in one of his teachings about the fact that it's all very well to be exposed to the truth and to actually see things as they really are, to see yourself where you really are. Well, then don't just walk away and just completely forget and go back to the nonsense that has been exposed. No temptation has overtaken you, no trial, no test that is not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, the trial, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. No test will be too difficult for you to bear. Every test will reveal your heart. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. Nothing will come along that you will be unable to resist. If you yield to temptation, is because that's what you chose. Because that was what was most important to you. Let's go back to verse 12. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands, the word is estemi, take heed lest he fall. Estemi in the Greek is yatsav in the Hebrew. And we looked at these words in Parsha Beshalach. Moshe said to the people, fear ye not, stand still, yatsav, and see the salvation of the Lord. The Israelites were pursued by the Egyptians, a very real enemy, just as we have a very real enemy. Your adversary, the devil, goes around seeking someone to devour. So Hebrew, yatsav, stands firm, and the Greek, histemi, we see it here. We find this word used in conjunction with wearing the armor of Yehovah. Finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. These words, Sistemi and Yetzav. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and the shoes of your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. So, there we have the armor of God mentioned then. Fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of the Lord. We are pursued by Hasatan, the adversary, and we have to be mindful of the schemes of the devil. How do we stand? How do we yatzav? How do we chistemi? By putting on this armor of Yehovah. Joel speaks about walking in his word, walking in the truth which is righteousness, letting our walk be one that declares the good news of Yehovah, by demonstrating our faith and our obedience to the one in whom we trust, by being mindful of our deliverance and our wonderful Savior Yeshua, by wielding the word and with prayer. That's how we stand. Now here's the words of one who has concerned themselves with walking righteously. My steps have held fast to your paths, my feet have not slipped. This one has great confidence, and this one can utter. Keep, cherish, guard over me as the apple of your eye, and hide me in the shadow of your wings. So we're told, watch, you have an enemy who wants to come against you, the schemes of the devil. I just love the fact that for all those who walk in righteousness, you can come before Yehovah with a confidence. If we're careful to walk in the word, to put on the armor, to be righteous, to keep ourselves from sin, to stand, then we're protected. We can have great assurance. 1 John says this. We know that everyone who has been born of God does not keep on sinning, but he who is born of God protects him, and the evil one does not touch him. We know that we are from God. The whole world lies in the power of the evil one. And here in Corinthians 10:12 we have the warning, therefore let anyone who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. It's this word, histemi. Maybe we think we're safe. We think that we have carefully put on the armor of Yehovah. Maybe we think, yeah, we're sorted and we stand. But just as Yeshua called for us to watch, here we're called to take heed. It's a call to vigilance, isn't it? Take heed, behold, perceive, regard, beware, look. Don't forget who you're called to be. Don't take your eyes off the prize, just as these people did in the Parsha. Our citizenship is in heaven. From it we await a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Doesn't matter what comes your way, what might try and entice you. Remember this. He will transform our lowly body to be like his glorious body by the power that enables him even to subject all things to himself. Therefore, my brothers, whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm thus in the Lord, my beloved. And this word for stand firm, stako, here is actually from this other word, histemi, the same concept to standing that we see used for stand and see the salvation of Jehovah and putting on the armor of Jehovah. It gives us new life to know that you're standing firm in the Lord. It's this word. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be courageous. In the Hebrew, hazak, be strong. We're called to stand firm, that is to put on the armor of Jehovah, which is to walk in his word. We're called to be courageous. In the Hebrew, the equivalent word is hazak. Shall keep the whole commandment that I command you today, that you may be strong, that you may be hazak. We're called to be watchful. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He said to Peter, so you could not watch with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Watch and pray. The two go together. This is impressed upon me this week as well. Things to watch for. He said, watch and beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Watch and beware the false teaching and hypocrisy of religious leaders. I appeal to you, brothers, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine that you've been taught. Avoid them. For such persons do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. By smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the hearts of the naive. Watch yourselves so that you may not lose what we have worked for, but may win a full reward. Therefore, let anyone who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Perceive, regard, beware. If you do not take heed, there is a danger that you might fall. There's a serious call for vigilance. Proverbs 16. The highway of the upright is to depart from evil, to have no part in it. He who watches his way preserves his life. I think Paul's message is, look at what happened to those calling themselves Jehovah's people. Look how easily they were led astray. Golden calf, fashioning a god for themselves and attributing Jehovah's name to it. The serpents that came because they loathed the manna, the word. Shittim, being led astray by the desires of the flesh into fornication and idolatry. Look at them and then look at yourself. And who was it that was able to stand and not fall in the Baal Peor incident? Moshe addresses the people at Shittim. Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and rules that I am teaching you and do them, that you may live. And go in and take possession of the land that Jehovah, the God of your fathers, has given you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may cherish the commandments of Jehovah your God that I command you. Your eyes have seen what Jehovah did at Baal Peor, for Jehovah your God destroyed from among you all the men who followed the Baal of Peor. But you who held fast to Jehovah your God are all alive today. What is it to cleave to Jehovah? Deuteronomy 13:4. You shall walk after Jehovah your God and fear him and keep his commandments, cherish his commandments, shema his voice, and you shall serve him and cleave to him. To cleave to him is to fear him, to cherish his commandments, and to shema his voice. And those that cleave to him survived. They did not fall. All those who feared Jehovah, who cherished his commandments and shemad his voice, survived. We read in Proverbs 7, my son, keep my words, treasure up my commandments within you. Keep my commandments and live. Keep my teaching as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Cherishing the commandments is life. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. Call understanding your intimate friend. To keep you from the strange or harlot woman, from the Nachri with their smooth words, who brings what? Calamity, disaster, and misfortune. Cherishing the commandments goes hand in hand with wisdom and understanding. It leads to life. It keeps you from the harlot, from one appealing to the desires of the flesh, from false religion, from nonsense. The harlot has smooth words to draw you in. We need the corresponding and greater power of Yehovah's words to keep us from her clutches. Back to Deuteronomy 4. But you who held fast to Yehovah your God are all alive today. See, I have taught you statutes and rules as Yehovah my God commanded me. You should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who when they hear all these statutes will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Cherishing the commandments goes hand in hand with wisdom and understanding. The wise obey. For what great nation is there that is a God so near to it as Yehovah our God is to us whenever we call upon him? As we saw, who are the people who can come and call before him with confidence? Those who walk in righteousness. And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this Torah that I set before you today? So, the Torah is such a blessing. The commandments keep us from harm. They are our wisdom and understanding. Yeshua's warning, see that no one leads you astray. Because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. Lawlessness, a move away from walking in Yehovah, from cherishing his word. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Imagine, and we're coming to a close now, being able to look over at the promised land, thinking that you're going to be one of those that makes it. I am sure that however real the promises of Yehovah are to us, that if we're not vigilant, then we are in danger of being led astray just as some of those at Shittim were. So what must we do? We must cherish the commandments. We must have an appreciation of how blessed we are. That will bring wisdom and guard us from the folly of wandering. Right. So, we finished part 1 by saying that we must be vigilant. We must cherish the commandments. We must have an appreciation of how blessed we are. And that will bring wisdom and guard us from the folly of wandering. And we must learn from the examples that we've been given in Scripture, that we might not desire evil as they did, and that we would not be led astray. We read the verse, the highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He who watches his way preserves his life. Interested in the LXX, it's rendered slightly differently. It's a bit more expansive. The paths of life turn aside from evil, and the ways of righteous are length of life. He that receives instruction shall be in prosperity, and he that regards reproof shall be made wise. He that keeps his ways preserves his own soul, and he that loves his life will spare his mouth. Slightly different, isn't it? The paths of life, though, we read, turn aside from evil. Nothing to do with it. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths. Don't be lured into the nonsense. The path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. We see so many examples of that in people's lives. We're called to be light. We're called to be children of the light, rather. We're children of the day. We're called to watch. We're called to be sober. Now, last week's Parsha ended with an example of what happens to those who do not turn away from evil and are enticed by sinners. Okay, they abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab, enticed by sinners. They bowed down to their gods. Israel joined himself to Baal Peor, and the anger of Yehovah was kindled against Israel, seduced into idolatry. The Lord said, take the heads of the people, hang them before Yehovah against the sun, that the fierce anger of Yehovah might be turned away from Israel. And Moshe said to the judge of Israel, slay ye every one his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. Behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moshe, in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aharon, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation, took a javelin in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly, so the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. Those that died were 24,000. And then continuing on, this week's parsha, and Yehovah said to Moshe, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aharon the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy, or in some translations, zealous, among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy. And as I say, this word's also translated somewhere, some places as zealous. Therefore say, behold, I give to him my covenant of peace, that shall be to him and to his descendants after him, the covenant of a perpetual priesthood, because he was zealous for his God, and made atonement for the people of Israel. And in the Hebrew text of Torah, the first verb phrase used by Yehovah is Hashiv et Hamati, literally meaning he turned away the hot indignation or rage, displeasure or wrath of Yehovah that Yehovah felt. Second phrase is Lo Hiliti Bechin Ati, literally meaning he carried forth to completion the zeal or passion which I, Yehovah, felt. In other words, Pinchas was in touch with the heart of Yehovah. He began to feel within himself the very emotions of Yehovah, and then actually let Yehovah's passion consume him and direct his actions. Pinchas knew Yehovah. We read in Jeremiah 9, thus says Yehovah, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, let not the mighty man boast in his might, let the rich man boast in his riches. But let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me. I am Yehovah, who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. In these things I delight, declares Yehovah. We get to know Yehovah through his word, by cherishing his commandments and walking in his way, by drawing near with spiritual sacrifices. Now, in the story of Pinchas, we see an example of what happens when we do not cherish the commandments. We do not watch and pray. And we do not keep ourselves set apart and holy. When we allow ourselves to be enticed, going after the desires of the flesh. Ultimately, what happens is that the tabernacle is defiled. Of course, our bodies are described as being tabernacles, aren't they? 2 Peter 1. Yea, I think it meet as long as I am in this tabernacle to stir you up by putting you in remembrance, knowing that I shortly must put off this my tabernacle, even as our Lord Yeshua HaMashiach hath showed me. So there's Peter describing his body as his tabernacle. What is more, our bodies, our tents, are the temple of Yehovah. So the question is, would we allow these to be defiled? Know you not that you are the temple of God, the tabernacle of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If any man defiles the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. Again, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own. You were bought with a price, so glorify God in your body. Your body is the temple of God. It is the temple of the Spirit of God. So the question is, how zealous are you? Would you pick up a javelin if you thought your temple was being defiled? Our bodies are the dwelling place of the Spirit of Yehovah. Now, biblically speaking, it is the heart that has thoughts. We see this in many places, the thoughts of my heart, thoughts and intentions of my heart. 1 Corinthians 2:11, who knows a person's thoughts except the spirit of that person which is in him? So the Spirit acts upon the thoughts and intentions of the heart. To be spiritually clean, we need to have a clean heart. So, ask you this question, how zealous are you? Would you pick up a javelin? We've had our temples and our bodies, our tents cleansed. Let us not allow the defilement of what Yehovah has made clean. We've been sanctified. We are the dwelling place of the Spirit of holiness. Consider what it cost for you to be cleansed. We looked at this when we went through Hukat. The enemy wants to turn us from following Jehovah's word, to wander off from the paths of righteousness. The enemy presents us with perverted, distorted spirituality, which is designed to corrupt us. With regards to the whore, let us not be drunk on the wine of her fornication, and let us not be enticed by her daughters. Let us not be led astray by the doctrine of Balaam that would have us compromise our set apartness, our holiness. We are blessed by Jehovah. The enemy wants to rob us of that blessing by getting us to be unfaithful to Jehovah. And he always dresses it up to appeal to our flesh while maintaining a spiritual overtone. The whole world over, there are people worshipping false gods and practice religions that are abominable to Jehovah. And of course, in the world, we see that there are many gods: celebrity, science, technology, self, politics, sports, television, video games, sex, drugs, music, money, power, fashion, food. All these things that people are enticed away by. Now, the Israelites in our parsha were blessed. They were just about to enter the land. That is, until they committed fornication and kept company with workers of iniquity. Psalm 141 we read, O Jehovah, I call upon you, hasten to me. Give ear to my voice when I call to you. Let my prayer be counted as incense before you, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Set a guard, O Jehovah, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not let my heart incline to do any evil, to busy myself with wicked deeds, in company with men who work iniquity, and let me not eat of their delicacies. So the question, do you want to take hold of the promises and walk into the land that is the inheritance of his people? Do you want to be where Yeshua is so that you can behold him in all his glory? Do not forget the warnings Jehovah has laid out for us. Do not be seduced. Do not be drawn away. The enemy will try to seduce us into turning away from Jehovah by appealing to our flesh that does not want to submit to Jehovah's law. The enemy wants to entice you. The enemy wants you cursed rather than blessed. And we saw in Parsha Hukat that if we are in transgression of his statutes, his judgments, and his commandments, if we set up idols in our hearts, then we defile our temples. Consider what it cost for you to be cleansed. To be spiritually clean, we need to have a clean heart. So again, I ask the question, how zealous are you? Would you pick up a javelin? We are to be spiritually clean, not allowing the tabernacle of Jehovah, our tents, to become defiled. And that means having a clean heart, which means having a clean mind. 2 Corinthians 10, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. We are not passively to allow ourselves to entertain thoughts that defile us. Rather, we're to pick up a javelin and go after them and say, no, no. We ought to keep our thoughts in check. Psalm 19, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Jehovah, my rock and my redeemer. What do you allow your mind to dwell on? What do you feed it? To be carnally minded, remember, is death. To be spiritually minded is life and peace. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Now, given that the Spirit acts upon the heart, that is to say, the Spirit acts upon the heart and the mind, that which has thoughts, then we can see the doors to our tabernacle, to the temple of Jehovah, as being our eyes and our ears. would you allow anything in that would defile the tabernacle? Significance of what we look at can be seen here in Numbers 15. Put a cord of blue on the tassel of each corner. There should be a tassel for you to look at and remember all the commandments of Jehovah to do them, not to follow after your own heart and your own eyes, which are inclined to whore after. So you shall remember and do all my commandments and be holy to your God. David, a man after God's own heart. I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. We've got this story here, this guy. And he sees the temple of Jehovah being defiled. There's a load of people stood about weeping, but this one guy, he gets up and he picks up a javelin and he goes over and he says no. He acts in accordance with Jehovah's word. Jehovah blesses him. We read the story and we think that's cool. But then so many people will sit around. They allow the temple of Jehovah themselves, their hearts and minds, to be completely and utterly overrun with filth and with nonsense. And they will do nothing to stop the temple being defiled. They won't act in accordance with Jehovah's word. There'll be no zeal. It'll just be, oh, look what's happening. The temple is being defiled. How zealous are you? Pinchas was zealous for Jehovah. What are you zealous for? Does your zeal reflect that your heart is in step, in line with Jehovah? Do you know him? Do you understand him? Back to Numbers 25. Jehovah said to Moshe, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aharon, the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was zealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy. The name of the slain man of Israel who was killed with the Midianite woman was Zimri, the son of Salu, chief of a father's house belonging to the Simeonites. And the name of the Midianite woman who was killed was Cosbi, the daughter of Zer, who was the tribal head of a father's house in Midian. And Jehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, we read it before, harass the Midianites and strike them down. For they have harassed you at their wiles with which they beguiled you in the matter of Peor and the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the chief of Midian, their sister, who was killed on the day of the plague on account of Peor. Now, zeal can be shown to be negative or positive depending on motive and loyalties. Zeal must be coupled with knowledge. Romans 10:12, I bear them witness that I have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. Positive zealousness can bring about repentance. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten, therefore be zealous and repent. Phineas is from the tribe of Levi, and Zimri is from the tribe of Shimon. These two tribes were the ones who in Genesis 34:25 joined together in a conspiracy in order to avenge the honor of their sister Dinah by destroying the city of Shechem. The whole story with Dinah is actually interesting as well, because she went off and assimilated with those around her, and she ended up being defiled. As another lesson about being set apart in that story as well. So Genesis 49, the blessings. Simeon, this is Yaakov speaking, and he says, Simeon and Levi are brethren, instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them, Simeon and Levi, in Yaakov, and scatter them in Israel. Not a glowing report from Yaakov. Now, what began as a partnership for evil between the tribes of Shimon and Levi effectively will end in our parsha, when Pinchas, representing Levi, kills Zimri, representing Shimon. In Genesis 29:33, the name Simeon is directly linked to the verb shema, meaning to hear. And getting the meanings of names can be a bit interesting to say the least, but I think this is interesting. The Simeonite Zimri, apparently that can be translated as my music, and the Midianite was called Cosby, and that can be translated as my light. I just think it's an interesting point, because it sounds like an apt description of many of those claiming to be God's children, drawn away into spiritual fornication, dancing to their own tune, having given themselves over to a lie. Now, in an act of zeal, Pinchas kills the couple. And you ask yourself this: is Zimri the Simeonite any less of a zealot for his public display of sex in front of the tabernacle? It can be shown that the descendants of Simeon and Levi take different directions in how they handle their zeal. This instance, in Numbers 26, what the census reveals: the result of the mixing of the Israelites with the daughters of Moab was the death of 24,000 Israelites by the plague. Numbers 26 gives us the current census number of Simeonites, and Numbers 1 gives us the census number from the beginning of the Exodus. Numbers 26:14. These are the families of the Simeonites, 22,200. Earlier on, though, those who were numbered of the tribe of Simeon were 59,300. Bit of a difference. So 59,300 beginning census number, 22,200 less ending the census number. So that's a decrease of 37,100 in the number of the Simeonites. So the tribe of Simeon lost 37,100, and it's easy to conclude that perhaps nearly all, or at least a large portion of the 24,000 who died from the plague were from the tribe of Simeon. Thus we could perhaps conclude that Zimri was a powerful leader of the Simeonites and personally responsible for the deaths, as he led them in rebellion against Moshe and Yehovah. Therefore we can make the conclusion that after the prophecy of Yaakov over his sons, the tribes of Levi and Simeon proceeded in opposite directions with their choices on how to handle zeal. So as I say, zeal can be positive or it can be negative. If there's no knowledge there, then that's not good. Zimri's zealous behavior had to be stopped. His energy was not dedicated to Jehovah. In fact, he had his own personal agenda. Two tribes, two different directions. One moved towards Jehovah, one moved towards self. One tribe's zeal merited blessing and honor, and one tribe effectively disappeared from the radar. Briefly anyway. In Deuteronomy, Moshe gives his final blessings to the tribes. Simeon receives no blessing whatsoever, no mention of his name. So, maybe you've been headed in the wrong direction. Maybe things aren't going well. Revelation 3:19, as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten, therefore be zealous and repent. Simeon's inheritance was within the midst of Judah, and it seems that you find them under Judah's wings on and off throughout Scripture. You can see them here. Okay. So they disappeared from the radar in Deuteronomy. They're not off the radar here, though, in Revelation 7. It's the 144,000 of all the tribes of Israel were sealed. Of the tribe of Simeon, 12,000 were sealed. So perhaps this is a message of being zealous and repenting. So the question comes, why is it bad what happened in Shechem and what Pinchas did righteous? And the big clue is, at Shechem, Simeon and Levi acted of their own volition. After the plagues had issued from the sin of the spies and the rebellion of Korah, Yehovah had told Aharon and his sons and his father's family, the Leviim, that they were to do what? Bear the responsibility for offences against the sanctuary. Zimri's offence was clearly an offence against the sanctuary. While Moshe and the assembly of repentant Israelites were gathered at the tent of meeting, weeping before Yehovah over the sins of the people and the plague which had struck the camp as a result of that sin, Zimri came right up to the tent where the repentant were weeping and mocked them, dishonoured Yehovah by bringing his sin right to the door of the tent of meeting. Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aharon, were within the class of those who were to bear the responsibility for offences against the sanctuary. You can see from Exodus 6:25, he's Aharon's grandson. Pinchas refused to let the tabernacle or the temple become defiled. He acted in accordance with Jehovah's word. Carried forth to completion the zeal or passion which Jehovah felt. So I include this account of the zealousness of Pinchas and the zealousness of Simeon just by means of just because somebody is zealous doesn't necessarily mean, oh, this is great and it's a really good thing. We see here the guy from the tribe of Shimon, was zealous, but he was zealous in a way that defiled the tabernacle. The exact opposite is Pinchas. He was zealous in accordance with Jehovah's word. The difference, blessed, the other one, no. So, we're to be spiritually clean, not allowing the tabernacle of Jehovah, our tents, to become defiled, and that means having a clean heart, which means having a clean mind. I would point people to JP's teaching last week, where he talked about matters which might defile people. So again, the question is, how zealous are you? And also the question, what are you zealous for? What are you zealous about? Now, lest we think Pinchas was someone who was given to violence and this was just part of his makeup. We read, the eastern tribes returning home in Joshua 22. At that time, Joshua summoned the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and he said to them, you've kept all that Moshe the servant of Jehovah commanded you, and have obeyed my voice in all that I commanded you. You've not forsaken your brothers these many days down to this day, but have been careful to keep the charge of Jehovah your God. So, they've gone over the Jordan, they fought with their brothers, and now he's saying, it's okay, you can go back, because you've done what you said you would. Now Jehovah your God has given rest to your brothers as he promised them. Therefore, go to your tents in the land where your possession lies, which Moshe the servant of Jehovah gave you on the other side of the Jordan. And this admonition, only be very careful to observe the commandments and the law that Moshe the servant of Jehovah commanded you. To love Jehovah your God, to walk in all his ways, to keep his commandments, and to cling to him, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. So they go back over the other side of the Jordan. So the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh returned home, parting from the people of Israel at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan, to go to the land of Gilead, the own land of which they had possessed themselves by the command of Jehovah through Moshe. Next, we have a misunderstanding that nearly leads to civil war. And when they came to the region of the Jordan that is in the land of Canaan, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh built there an altar by the Jordan, an altar of imposing size. And the people of Israel heard it and said, behold, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built the altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region about the Jordan on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. What are they doing? They've built this huge big altar. When the people of Israel heard of it, the whole assembly of the people of Israel gathered at Shiloh to make war against them. Okay, we can't have this. Then the people of Israel sent to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, Pinchas, the son of Eliatzar the priest. And with him 10 chiefs, one from each of the tribal families of Israel, every one of them the head of a family among the clans of Israel. And it's the same guy. Okay, so here he is now. What are they doing on the other side of the Jordan? They've built a big altar. They send over, well, we can't have that, we must have war. They send over Pinchas. They came to the people of Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, and they said to them, thus says the whole congregation of Jehovah, what is this breach of faith that you've committed against the God of Israel in turning away this day from following Jehovah by building yourselves an altar this day in rebellion against Jehovah? Because obviously people were supposed to go to Jerusalem and they're building this altar. What are they up to? Have we had not enough of the sin at Peor, from which even yet we have not cleansed ourselves, and for which there came a plague upon the congregation of Jehovah? It's interesting, isn't it? The events that we've read about with regards to the idolatry that took place at Shittim seem to have a profound effect on those who survived the judgment. Okay. We still haven't even got over it. Can you imagine, though, this? Difficult for us to actually appreciate, isn't it? That whole incident taking place, 24,000 people dying, people going off and fornicating with all these women, and the judgment of Yehovah coming. All these things happening, and then I don't think that ever really leaves you. And from what these people are saying, it never really left them. And they seem now to have, these people at least seem to have this understanding of, wow, we can't allow any of this nonsense anymore. That's why when they see these people building an altar, they're like, what are they up to? You can't go against the command of Yehovah. And they're straight over there. We can't stand for this. And then they say that you too must turn away from this day from following Yehovah. And if you too rebel against Yehovah today, then tomorrow he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel. Don't bring Yehovah's wrath on us by going against his commandment. But now, if the land of your possession is unclean, pass over into the Lord's land where the Yehovah's tabernacle stands. In other words, if this is all no good, come back, and Jerusalem where the tabernacle stands. Only do not rebel against Yehovah or make us as rebels by building for yourselves an altar other than the altar of Yehovah our God. Here we have an understanding of a corporate identity. Don't rebel against Yehovah or make us as rebels. Did not Achan the son of Zerah break faith in the matter of the devoted things, and wrath fell upon all the congregation of Israel? He did not perish alone for his iniquity. So don't rebel against Yehovah and make us as rebels. They recognize that the nation as a whole has a corporate responsibility, and they fear Yehovah. That's why they're acting the way they are. The people were vigilant. We're also called to be vigilant. Hebrews 3. Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, a heart that would go against the commandments of Yehovah, leading you to fall away from the living God. Exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. So, exhort one another daily. Not only are we to personally take heed for ourselves, lest we who think we stand should fall, we are to watch out for each other too. For those who might find themselves being rebuked. Let a righteous man strike me, it is a kindness. Let him rebuke me, it is oil for my head. Let my head not refuse it. Then the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh said in answer to the heads of the families of Israel, the mighty one God, Yehovah, the mighty one God, Yehovah, he knows, and let Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or in breach of faith against Yehovah, do not spare us today. For building an altar to turn away from following Yehovah, or if we did so for burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings on it, may Yehovah himself take vengeance. So, if any of this was done in rebellion against Yehovah, yeah, fine, wipe us out. No, but we did it from fear that in time to come your children might say to our children, what have you to do with Yehovah, the God of Israel? For Yehovah has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you, and the people of Reuben and Gad. You have no portion in Yehovah, so your children might make our children cease to worship Yehovah. So this worry, you're going to forget that actually we're a part of Israel. We set this up here to remind as a sign that we are part of Israel. Therefore we said, let us now build an altar, not for burnt offering nor for sacrifice, which would be against Torah, but to be a witness between us and you and between our generations after us, that we do perform the service of Yehovah in his presence with our burnt offerings and sacrifices and peace offerings, so your children will not say to our children in time to come, you have no portion in Yehovah. And we thought, if this should be said to us and to our descendants in time to come, we should say, behold, the copy of the altar of Yehovah which our fathers made, not for burnt offerings, not for sacrifice, but to be a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against Yehovah and turn away this day from following Yehovah by building an altar for burnt offering, grain offering, or sacrifice, other than the altar of Yehovah our God that stands before his tabernacle. And here he is, this man who's ran through with a spear and put it through the Cosby and his, what was the name, Zimri. When Pinchas the priest and the chiefs of the congregation, the heads of the families of Israel who were with him, heard the words the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh spoke, it was good in their eyes. So they go there with this intention of war, but they listened. And Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, said to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh, today we know that Yehovah is in our midst, because you have not committed this breach of faith against Yehovah. Now you've delivered the people of Israel from the hand of Yehovah. And Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the priest and the chiefs, returned from the people of Reuben and the people of Gad in the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan, to the people of Israel, and brought back word to them. And the report was good in the eyes of the people of Israel, and the people of Israel blessed God and spoke no more of making war against them to destroy the land where the people of Reuben, the people of Gad were settled. And so here we have another incident where Pinchas shows that he is zealous for Yehovah. His zeal, though, comes with understanding, and yet again, he acts righteously. Both times, he brings peace. When he comes and he puts his javelin through, he brings peace. He stops the wrath of God coming upon the people. And here, he also brings peace. We read in Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. An assumption behind the word son was that a son shared the characteristics of his father. We see this with Phineas time and time again. Pinchas acted like his father. Interestingly, before Yeshua speaks of the peacemakers, blessed are the peacemakers, he says this, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. As we've seen, the heart is the place where the Spirit dwells, the sanctuary, the temple of Yehovah. Pinchas in his zeal would not allow the tabernacle to be defiled, and thus demonstrated what it means to be pure in heart. And his actions brought peace to the camp. Now, we're going to finish by taking a look at this place, Shittim, where the people are. As mentioned earlier, this is the last camping ground of Israel before they cross the Jordan to begin the conquest of the Promised Land. We've seen 24,000 die. And at Shittim, in preparation for entering Canaan, a tribe-by-tribe census is going to be taken in chapter 26. It was here that the Israelites defeated the Midianites from the headquarters of Shittim. That will come next week. And Joshua sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies to scout out Jericho. Read that in Joshua 2. Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, go and view the land, especially Jericho. They went and they came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and they lodged there. The miraculous journey crossing through the Jordan River with the Ark of the Covenant began in Shittim and ended in Gilgal. See, Joshua rose early in the morning, they set out from Shittim and they came to the Jordan. He and all the people of Israel lodged before they passed over. And then the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th of the first month, and they camped at Gilgal, on the east border of Jericho. And the story, we went through this when we went through the Parshas in the book of Joshua, the miraculous events that take place. And this journey from Shittim to Gilgal actually gets a mention in the book of Micah. Hear ye, O mountains, the Lord's Yehovah's controversy, and ye strong foundations of the earth. For Yehovah has a controversy with his people, and he will plead with Israel. O my people, what have I done to thee? And wherewithin have I wearied thee? Testify against me. Which to me sounds a lot like Isaiah 5. What more was that I could do for my vineyard that I've not done in it? Why have you decided to be like this? I brought you up out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you out of the house of servants, and I sent before you Moses and Aharon and Miriam. So Yehovah asks why the people have lost their passion towards him, why he's become a burden to them. Reminds them of what he has done for them in bringing them forth from Egypt. And then, of all the things that he can mention, he mentions Balak and Balaam. O my people, remember now what Balak king of Moab consulted, and what Balaam the son of Beor answered him, from Shittim until Gilgal, that ye may know the righteousness of Jehovah. Wherewith shall I come before Jehovah and bow down myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will Jehovah be pleased with thousands of rams, or 10,000 of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? So here Micah is describing perfectly how not to draw near to Jehovah if you've lost your way. Jehovah is not interested in religious pomp and empty gesturing. This is what we see Balaam trying to impress him with. Of course, we read this 2 weeks ago. Samuel said, as Jehovah has great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of Jehovah. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. And then in Micah we read this. He showed thee, O man, what is good, ma tov, and what doth Jehovah require of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. And this expression here, ma tov, is actually found somewhere else in the scripture in Parsha Balak. Whilst trying to curse Israel at Balak's request, we read, Balaam lifted up his eyes and he saw Israel abiding in his tents according to their tribes, and the Spirit of God came upon him. So Balaam sees Israel living together as a community. He took up his parable and said, Balaam the son of Beor had said, and the man whose eyes are open has said, he had said, which heard the words, eyes open, he says, he that said, which had heard the words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty falling into trance, but having his eyes open, says, how goodly, and it's this expression again, Martov, are thy tents, O Yaakov, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. So we've got a linguistic link between these two episodes. Micah talking about returning to what Jehovah calls good, Martov. He said to do justly, love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. Compared with when Jehovah saw that Israel was good and they could not be cursed. How goodly, Matov, are thy tents, O Yaakov, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. So what is the fundamental goodness of Israel that made Jehovah unwilling to curse them and rather to bless them? What is Tov to Jehovah? The answer is their tents and their dwelling places. And it speaks to us in two ways, both personally in our individual walks, our tabernacles, our temples, being the temple of Jehovah, and also collectively as his people. He saw them all camped together according to their tribes. So being just, loving mercy, and walking humbly with Jehovah is Tov, and we can see it related to how we dwell with each other as a community. Now regarding having lovely tents in terms of community, 1 Peter 4, the end of all things is at hand, be therefore sober and watch unto prayer. The end of all things is at hand. This puts me in mind of those who dwelt at Shittim, who were just about to enter into the promised land. Again, we have the end of all things is at hand, and we have warnings. Be sober, as in not drunk on false doctrine. Effectively the same message as take heed lest you fall. And again, we have watching and prayer mentioned together. Then the call for community, lovely tents, Matov. The call to dwell together in a way that brings blessing and protects us from those who would curse us. Above all things, have fervent charity amongst yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Charity, love amongst yourselves. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received a gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Hebrews 10. Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and to good works. Good works. All scripture is God breathed, useful for teaching, that we might be thoroughly equipped for every good work. In other words, let's stir up one another to walk in the word. Not neglecting to meet together as the habit of some, but encouraging one another. And again, all these scriptures that I came across while I was putting this together, all pointing to Though even more as you see the day drawing near. So we've got community and the day approaching. Don't stop meeting together. Paul mentions the qualities of Micah 6:8 with regards to how we live with each other as Yehovah's people. What are the qualities again? To justly love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, forgiving one another. If any man has a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. And above all of these, put on charity, love, which is the bond of perfectness. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which you also are called in one body, collectively as his people, and be thankful. And let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And Yeshua said, didn't he? He said, they'll know you, my disciples, if you have love one to another. When Balaam tries to curse Israel, he's unable to. How lovely are our tents? This is the question that we must ask. Are we doing that which Yehovah demands of man? Are we doing justice, his mishpatim? Are we loving mercy and we walking humbly with our God? If we've lost our passion for him and do not focus all our attention into loving him as we should, and the way back for his people is not through offerings and religious gymnastics, as Micah points out. It's through dwelling with each other with fairness and mercy, and also learning to walk with Yehovah with our heads bowed, humbly, completely surrendered. So how lovely are our tents? We've looked at it in a communal sense. How lovely are our tents in a personal point of view? We're to be spiritually clean, not allowing the tabernacle of Yehovah, our tents, to become defiled. That means having a clean heart, which means having a clean mind. Which means taking every thought captive, which means guarding the gates, the eyes, and the ears. Balaam tried to come and he tried to curse the people and he couldn't. He ends up saying, how lovely are your tents? How lovely are our tents? How zealous are you? We live in a world where we're bombarded with absolute nonsense. It's almost impossible to avoid things that would try to defile us. So I ask you, have you picked up your javelin? And maybe you haven't been zealous at all. Maybe you've let things slip and you've allowed the temple to be defiled. Maybe you've been enticed by sinners. Maybe you've lost your way, entertaining sin in your life, letting things slide. Maybe you've allowed the desires of the flesh to lead you away. Seduced into idolatry, seduced into setting up idols in your heart. That is, putting things before Yehovah in order to gratify your lusts. If this is you, then you need to return. Let the words of Micah instruct you. How shall I come before Yehovah and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will Yehovah be pleased with 10,000 of rams or with 10,000 of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body, for the sin of my soul? Just as Yehovah was unimpressed by Balaam's numerous offerings, so Yehovah is not interested in any religious pomp and empty gesturing that you might be able to offer. He has showed you, O man, what is good. What does Yehovah require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God? So, turn to walk in his ways. Humble yourself before Yehovah. Bow the knee, not as some empty gesture, but in complete submission to him, and cleave to him. The incident at Baal Peor, where so many were led astray, where so many died, who was it that lived? We read it before. Don't add to the word that I command you. Don't take from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yehovah your God that I command you. Your eyes have seen what Yehovah did at Baal Peor, for Yehovah your God destroyed from among you all the men who followed the Baal of Peor. But you who held fast to Yehovah your God are all alive today. What is it to cleave to him? It is to fear, to cherish his commandments, and to shema his voice. Imagine being able to look over at the promised land, thinking that you're going to be one of those that make it. I just want to impress this. Take heed, lest thinking you stand, you fall. Hold fast, cleave to Yehovah. The end of all things is at hand. Be sober and watch unto prayer. Don't be led astray by any nonsense. Watch, pray. And above all things, have fervent charity amongst yourselves. Watch out for each other. We are called collectively as Yehovah's people. How lovely are our tents. Not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Now I am sure that however real the promises of Yehovah are to us, that if we're not vigilant, then we're in danger of being led astray, just as some of those at Shittim were. We must cherish the commandments, guard over, watch over, appreciate. And we must have an appreciation of how blessed we are. That will bring wisdom and guard us from the folly of wandering. And we must help one another. And we're called to love one another. So we've looked at Pinchas and the aftermath of the Baal Peor incident in Numbers 25. We see that in chapter 26, a census is taken. Read 26. After the plague, Yehovah said to Moshe and to Eleazar, the son of Aharon the priest, take a census of all the congregation of the people of Israel from 20 years old and upward by their fathers' houses, all in Israel who were able to go to war. Now, we saw at the end of chapter 25 that Yehovah called for the people to harass the Midianites and to strike them down. But I don't think this census has anything to do with making war. When they go to war, the Israelites take only 1,000 from each tribe. We read that next week. They were provided of the thousands of Israel, 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. So it doesn't make any sense to count all the men down to the family in preparation for a war with Midian if you only send 12,000. So the census, Numbers 26. If we compare and contrast this census with the census of Numbers 1 to 44, we see the major difference between these two censuses is that the census in Numbers 26 is more extensive, counting even the number of the names of the families, whereas the census of Numbers 1 did not specify names of families. Read, this was the list, so it goes through, we got all these lists, and then we read, this was the list of the people of Israel. The total was 601,730. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, among these the land shall be divided for inheritance according to the number of names. To a large tribe you shall give a large inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. Every tribe shall be given its inheritance in proportion to its list. The land shall be divided by lot according to the names of the tribes of their fathers they shall inherit. The inheritance shall be divided according to lot between the larger and the smaller. So, the census includes the names of the families because the purpose of this census is to count the people to determine how to divide the land. So this is looking forward to when they go over into the promised land. This census is not for natural descendants of Yaakov alone. We read in Ezekiel 47. It shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance to you and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel, and they shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. So this is explaining how the Lord sees these things. It shall come to pass that in the tribe the stranger sojourns, there shall you give him his inheritance, says the Lord God. Also, you can see in Isaiah 56, 6, 7. So, if you're associated with a tribe, then you your lot is in accordance with that. So the census from 5 to 51, the top of the charts. I only put this in just so we can have a cheer when we get to Issachar. So, when Israel left Egypt, the total number of men 20 and older, together with the Levites, was 625,850. This time the tally will only be 624,530. The most elevated tribe is Manasseh, the biggest gainer. It actually increased during the wilderness wanderings by 20,500 men in one generation, and a dramatic one at that. The tribe of Manasseh went from smallest tribe to the 6th largest. Oof. Gainers and losers in general. Other tribes ascending in population, ranking between the two censuses, were Issachar, hey, from 5th to 3rd. I have no idea why I get excited about Issachar. Asher, 9th to 5th. Tribes descending in population ranking other than Shimon were Reuven, 7th to 9th, slide. Gad, 8th to 10th, Ephraim, 10th to 11th, and Naphtali, 6th to 8th. The two largest tribes remained Yehuda and Dan, both posting small increases in numbers. Zebulun retained its ranking as the 4th largest tribe by posting a similar gain. And then we have the chilling reminder. But among these, there was not a man of them whom Moshe and Aharon the priest numbered when they numbered the children of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said, of them they shall surely die in the wilderness, and there was not a man of them left save Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun, the ones who followed Yehovah wholly. Then we have the grievance of the daughters of Zelophehad. 5 daughters of Zelophehad display a love for the land their fathers rejected as a land that devours its inhabitants, and they want to make sure there's an inheritance for them. Then drew near the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, from the clans of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. The names of his daughters were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They stood before Moshe and before Eleazar the priest and before the chiefs and all the congregation at the entrance of the tent of meeting, saying, our father died in the wilderness, and he was not among the company of those who gathered themselves together against Yehovah in the company of Korah, but died for his own sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be taken away from his clan because he had no son? Give to us a possession among our father's brothers. Their expectation that the word of Yehovah will be performed in due season, their desire for an interest in the promised inheritance, and the modest, candid manner in which they asked, without secret murmurings or discontents, are a good example. So they just come, they're dead open about it, and they come forward and they say, look, he had no sons, his name's just going to pass. Well, surely we should have some inheritance. So what did Moshe do? He brought their case before Yehovah. And Yehovah said to Moshe, the daughters of Zelophehad are right. You shall give them possession of an inheritance among their father's brothers and transfer the inheritance of their father to them. You shall speak to the people of Israel, saying, if a man dies and he has no son, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. If he has no daughter, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, he shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. If his father has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to the nearest kinsman of his clan, and he shall possess it, and it shall be for the people of Israel a statute and a rule, as Yehovah commanded Moshe. And we see the resolution of this matter in the book of Joshua in chapter 17. An allotment was made to the people of Manasseh for the firstborn of Joseph, to Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, were allotted Gilead and Bashan, because he was a man of war. So here we are, all about the tribes of Manasseh, and allotments were made to the rest of the people of Manasseh by their clans, named here. Now Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters, and these are the names of his daughters, Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They approached Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun, the leaders, and said, Yehovah commanded Moshe to give us an inheritance along with our brothers. So they've held on to this word. Okay, this is it. They're now in the land. So according to the mouth of Yehovah, he gave them an inheritance among the brothers of their father. So they get their land. Thus there fell to Manasseh 10 portions beside the lands of Gilead and Bashan, which is on the other side of the Jordan. When you go through the book of Joshua, as we did, you'll see the way things get apportioned out. Because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance along with his sons, the land of Gilead was allotted to the rest of the people of Manasseh. The territory of Manasseh reached from Asher to Mechmethath, which is east of Shechem. And in verses 7 to 10, you get all the details. So as we say, everything that's going on in this census being taken now, we'll see it all being resolved when you get to the book of Joshua. And speaking of Joshua, next we have a successor for Moshe. Numbers 27. Yehovah said to Moshe, go up to this mountain of Avarim and see the land that I have given to the people of Israel. So you can go up and have a look. And when you have seen it, you shall also be gathered to your people as your brother Aharon was. So when you've seen it, you're going to die. This is the casual approach to passing away. I don't know why, but I really like it. I was actually quite saddened this week, though. I walked Sid, the dog, the other day and was in Oxton. And as I'm walking back, I saw two lads that I used to know. Graham, who was always called Graham Nabuska, and Dylan, who plays the harmonica. I've known him for years, and I saw the two of them. I was always getting into trouble with Dylan. I don't know. But I like him, and he was always getting into fights because he's got a big mouth and he can't fight. He was always getting battered. But I liked him, you know. And yeah, I was talking with them, and then they told me that this bloke that we knew, Joey Grace, passed away. And he's, I don't know whether you remember me telling you the story of, I'd spoke to this man many times. When he was a kid, he thought he'd seen a UFO and stuff, and I spoke to him, and he had all these crazy ideas and stuff. What do you think of these space aliens and all this? And I would try and tell him about deception and not to pay too much heed to all these things that he had going on in his head. And then he said, I'll never sleep in my bed. And I was like, why do you never sleep in your bed? And he said, the woman, she's always there. I was like, what woman? She just harasses me, so I have to sleep on the couch. And it just sounded like some kind of spiritual attack that he'd gone through for all his life. He just seemed to have like a miserable life, but he was a nice fella. He's the one who sat in the corner of the cafe where I was, and him and his mate started singing, "It teach the world to sing in perfect harmony." And they were both like, this is like they'd stumbled upon some great font of wisdom. And as I can't believe we'd never, this is amazing. And then went on further, they got down this song, they started realising it was absolute nonsense and drivel. It was just funny to watch. But he passed away. And it just, I don't know, it just really saddened me, because there was a man who was so incredibly lost. He'd always seemed like he was somebody who was searching, but he'd been deceived, and I don't know. And I just felt sad, because I wished that I got another chance to speak to him and try to tell him about the truth, because he would sort of half listen. And it just makes me realise how incredibly blessed that we are in knowing what we know. And when death comes to us, it's not what it is to the rest of the world. So you can read things like this, and you're going to go up there, you'll have a look, and then you're going to die. And it's all like completely different than it would be if you were somebody who was in the darkness, somebody who was in the world, somebody who didn't know who Yehovah was. I've kind of spent all week wondering why I felt so sad. And I'm still trying to figure out why I feel so sad about the passing of this man. It wasn't like he wasn't my family or anything. I didn't know him really, really well. But just made me feel sad all week. So, yeah, I think I've taken from it, we are incredibly blessed, incredibly blessed. And then the Lord speaks to him and says why you can only look and why you can't go over the land. And he says, because you rebelled against my word in the wilderness of Zin, and the congregation quarreled, failing to uphold me as holy at the waters before their eyes. These are the waters of Meribah, of Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin. Okay, and this reminds me of Acts 10. Peter opened his mouth and said, truly you understand that God shows no partiality. This is Moses of all people. But sin brings consequence. For Moshe, he's not going to enter into the land. And Moshe spoke to Yehovah, saying, let Yehovah, the God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation. I think that's an interesting phrase, isn't it? I've never opened a prayer to Yehovah and called him that, the God of the spirits of all flesh, but it's an interesting thing for Moshe to say. Who shall go out before them and go in and come in before them. So, Lord, they need a leader. Who shall lead them out and bring them in, that the congregation of Yehovah may not be as sheep that have no shepherd. Interesting when you consider who the good shepherd is, and that Joshua, who becomes the leader, is actually like a messianic figure, isn't he? A prototype. So Yehovah said to Moshe, take Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him. Make him stand before Eleazar the priest and all the congregation, and you shall commission him in their sight. Okay. It's interesting all the way back in Scripture when we see these things, laying hands on people. Shall invest him with some of your authority, that all the congregation of the people of Israel may obey. We see in Deuteronomy that Moshe is to actually strengthen and to encourage Joshua. After all, he's about to take Moshe's place as leader, which is pretty daunting to say the least, you would imagine. The Lord says, you're not going over the Jordan. Charge Joshua, encourage and strengthen him, for he shall go over at the head of his people, and he shall put them in possession of the land that you shall see. So he says, and he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall inquire for him by the judgment of the Urim before Yehovah. At his word they shall go out, at his word they shall come in. Both he and all the people of Israel with him, the whole congregation. And Moshe did as Yehovah commanded him. He took Joshua, and he made him stand before Eleazar the priest and the whole congregation. And he laid his hands on him and commissioned him as Yehovah directed through Moshe. Now, for more on Joshua, for those who are unaware, we did a study of the whole book last year, and you can catch these online. I think it's worth going through because it's kind of like it kind of makes the whole of the Torah, it's like brings it to, ties up the loose ends, as it were. The Parsha ends with Numbers 28 to 29, which give us instructions for offerings that are made at the following times: the daily offering, the Sabbath offering, the monthly or Chodesh offering, Passover offerings, offerings for first fruits in Shavuot, offerings for the Feast of Trumpets, offerings for Yom Kippur, offerings for Sukkot. So Moshe told the people of Israel everything just as Yehovah had commanded Moses. That's the last verse in the Parsha. And the offerings, we're not going to go through them all, but you can read them in your own time. There's like 2 chapters worth. The offerings, those we've discussed when going through the book of Leviticus, are our means of drawing near to Yehovah. They are our means of making atonement. They prevent us from defiling the sanctuary. I think it's very fitting that our Parsha should end with these instructions. The story of Pinchas, as we've seen, an example of what happens when we do not cherish the commandments, when we do not watch and pray, when we do not keep ourselves set apart and holy, when we allow ourselves to be enticed going after the desires of the flesh. Ultimately, what happens is that the tabernacle is defiled. And we've asked the question, haven't we? How lovely are our tents? To be spiritually clean, not allowing the tabernacle of Yehovah, our tents, to become defiled. It means having a clean heart. Also means having a clean mind. And then we ask the question, how zealous are you? Would you pick up a javelin? At this point, I'll just point out, we mentioned before that Pinchas was to bear the offences against the sanctuary. And we put that in correlation with the fact that he went in with his javelin. The reason he was allowed to go in and stab them and javelin them or spear them, whatever the expression is because of what Moshe had said, which was that they were to be slain, all people who attached them to be all pure, just in case people misunderstand. But of course, in doing this, he was recognizing his responsibility towards the tabernacle. But just in case anyone wants to twist it and say, we've got excuses to go murdering people. No, he acted specifically on the instructions of Moshe in that instance. Now, with regards to the tabernacle being defiled, consider what it costs for you to be cleansed. Next time there's anything that would sully your mind, that would come in through your eyes or through your ears, that would defile your tabernacle, consider what it cost for you to be cleansed. Be zealous for Yehovah. Do not forget the warnings Yehovah has laid out for us in Scripture. Don't be seduced and drawn away. They're not just warnings that are without any need. They're there for a reason. Take heed. The enemy will try to seduce us into turning away from Yehovah by appealing to our flesh that does not want to submit to Yehovah's law. An instance might come up and, I don't really want to do, I've got to, hang on a minute. But I want to do this. The law of Yehovah says this. Trials and temptations will come along. The enemy wants to entice you. The enemy wants you cursed. Doesn't want you blessed and walking in the commandments of Yehovah. The highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He who watches his way preserves his life. Do you watch your way? The path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until the full day. The way of wickedness is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. And I think of all them people, I even think of the man, Joey Grace, who passed away, who walked in the darkness. He didn't have the light like what we have. We're called to be children of the light. We're called to be children of the day. We're called to watch. And we're called to be sober. Yeshua's warning was, see that no one leads you astray. Because if lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. Lawlessness, a move away from walking in the word. You can see it, can't you? You can see it in society, but you can see it in those people who call themselves Yehovah's people. The one who endures to the end will be saved. The Israelites in our parsha were blessed. They were just about to enter the land. That is, until they committed fornication, kept company with the workers of iniquity. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. But you who held fast and cleave to Yehovah, you're all alive today. I speak to people who have questions and what do you think I should do in this situation and what should I do in this situation? And it might be things that are real, like this week, 2 things. And they were, it was like I had to burst balloons, effectively. No, you can't do that. But if I do that, no, you can't, look, can you? Because that goes against what it says in the word. But it doesn't matter what comes up in your life. Cleave to Yehovah. They're the people who make it. And to cleave to him involves cherishing his commandments, guarding over them and watching over them. And it means putting to death the flesh. Imagine being able to look over the promised land, thinking that you're going to be one of those that makes it. Take heed, lest thinking you stand, you fall. The Parsha is effectively a big call for vigilance. A call to hold fast, to cleave to Yehovah. How lovely are our tents. Speaks to us in two ways, as we've seen, individually in our walks, but also as a community and as his people together. The end of all things is at hand. Be sober and watch unto prayer. Wow, the message really strong. Above all things, have fervent love among yourselves. Above all things, have fervent love amongst yourselves. He's talking about how you're to interact with each other, and he said, love each other. Not neglecting to meet together is the habit of some, but encouraging one another all the more as you see the day drawing near. So, coming to a close. I'm sure that however real the promises of Yehovah are to us, that if we are not vigilant, then we are in danger of being led astray, just as some of those at Shittim were. We must cherish the commandments. We must have an appreciation of how blessed we are. And that will bring wisdom and guard us from the folly of wandering. We must help one another. That is, we must love one another. So we pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the warnings in Scripture. Thank you for your commandments, Lord. They're wonderful. Thank you, Lord, for telling us exactly what it is that you require of us. Thank you for being there for us when we call out to you, for protecting us, for giving us light, Lord, that we don't have to walk in the darkness. Thank you for calling us out of the world, Lord. Forgive us, Lord, if we don't always realize and appreciate how blessed we are, how wonderful you are. You are absolutely beautiful, Lord. Bless your holy name. Amen.